I'll jump right in. So I'm Noah Lichtenstein. I'm the managing partner and founder of Crossover VC. We're an early stage venture capital fund providing a diversified way to invest in the early stage tech sector. We do this by backing founder and operator led pre-seed and seed funds. And then we directly invest in the Series A as well. And while most of our LPs are traditional investors, we have this unique wrinkle where about 45 of our individual investors happen to be pro athletes and entertainers, and we serve a bit as their on-ramp into the technology sector. And today we're lucky enough to have my good friend, crossover LP and NBA champion with the Milwaukee Bucks, Pat Connaughton, joining us. Thank you, Pat, for taking the time.
Appreciate you having me. Excited to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's tell people about who you are. So Pat is a two-sport professional athlete and NBA champion. He was selected in the Major League Baseball draft in 2014, as well as in the NBA draft in 2015, after a standout career at the University of Notre Dame. He's currently in his 9th season with the Milwaukee Bucks, and I hold him 100% responsible for recruiting Damian Lillard away from my Portland Trail Blazers. Not gonna let you get away with that, Pat.
I'm not a GM yet, no.
Not yet. But outside of basketball, Pat is also the co-founder and CEO of real estate development firm Three Leaf Partners, which is based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Currently has 18 employees, 125 investors, 17 projects in the portfolio with over $250 million in value, all while you're busy dribbling a basketball. So quite a bit here. And I think that's a great segue into the first question, which is, Pat, you and I often talk about this concept of the modern athlete. And as an NBA champion and successful investor and operator, I'm just curious, what does that term, the modern athlete, mean to you?
I think athletes have evolved over time. Obviously, we're very fortunate to do what we do as a job, right? And we're fortunate to get compensated handsomely for it. And I know everybody sees that. It's all obviously public information. Sports are a big part of, the culture in the world, let alone here in the United States. But I think as time has evolved, athletes have started to see, the power of their platform, but also been more bullish on the interests that they have outside of their respective sport. And there's passions that guys have, right? When you look at the general professional career of a young professional, they get into the workplace 22, 23 years old, but they're working until 50, 55, 60, et cetera, right? So their earning potential and the time that they're allotting to their profession is, 30, 40, 50 years. Professional athlete, if you're lucky, you're in the league 10 years, any league, right? Average career in the NBA, I believe, is 4 years, 4.5. So you look at when guys get into the league, 18, 19, 20, when the average career ends, 24, 25, 26. What are you doing, A, financially, and then B, with your time and your profession for the rest of those years? And I think the modern athlete has now started to see, you could make $200 million in the NBA or in any professional sports world, but if you're done playing by 35, you still have, 30, 40 years left of potentially going into a second profession. A lot of guys obviously look at the natural progression of going into coaching or front office management or things of that nature. But I think nowadays guys are starting to see, hey, I've always had an interest in real estate. I've had an interest in tech. I've had an interest in certain companies that are apparel-based, fashion-based, whatever their own passions and desires are. And they're starting to see that the platform that we have as athletes, not just athletes that have had a platform for years and years, but especially in today's day and age with social media and with the power of being able to reach, people across the entire globe, that they can get involved in things, they can have a positive impact on things, and it can obviously, hopefully help them financially, but even more so give them something to sink their teeth into when their playing days are over.
That's great. And if I could just maybe double click on something you talked about there, we've all sort of seen what a LeBron has done or a Serena Williams or others who have kind of a big brand name, or you want to talk about the Kardashians. And I think the obvious extension is going from celebrity to an endorsement or launching a brand that really is carried on the back of your name or is amplified by your name. Can you maybe talk about, though, for those who may not be aware, the opportunities and how folks who might be a sixth man or the seventh man on a team and how just both the economic, the dollars at stake now are so much bigger for these folks and how the opportunities arise for folks like yourself to launch 3Leaf or to invest in venture funds. Or Andre Iguodala has been a great, example as well. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about what it means for the sixth and seventh man versus what was traditional for the LeBrons or Michael Jordans?
Yeah, I mean, look, I have nothing but respect for, the LeBrons, the Serenas, the Kardashians, that have ventured out away from their quote unquote profession into other, entrepreneurial things, right? And have ownership and equity in different companies that they're growing and are, bringing on a life of their own and a career of their own, and now have 2, 3, 4 jobs, if you will, because of it. But to your point, I think something that some athletes even struggle with, but that a lot of people don't realize is being a professional athlete, that platform, you have it regardless of, the quote unquote hierarchy, whether you're a starter, whether you're the star of the team, whether you're a bench player, whether you're a rookie and you just got into the league, whether you're a two-way. And part of that is because of not just the league in which you're affiliated with, and wearing a jersey that has a city's name on it and obviously a league on it, but it's the people that you're interacting with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. It's the people that are sitting courtside. It's the people that own the team, right? It's developing those relationships and having those social abilities that can really put somebody into position to launch something that they may not know they had the capabilities of because they don't got a million Instagram followers or whatever the case may be. And I think it's just being willing to ask questions, being willing to voice your interests and your desires and your ambitions for when your playing career is over. And it, honestly, even backtrack a step further, it's starting just to think that way, right? It's starting to think about, hey, what do I have an interest in? Because whether I become a 15, 20-year player in a professional sport, league, all-star, whatever the case is, it's going to end someday. And if I don't have a desire to be a coach or a GM, or if I'm not sure I have a desire to do that, what are some of the things that I'm interested in? And then who within my organization, who within the affiliation with the league is in that industry, and how can I ask questions and learn from them? And that's where it all kind of started for me. And that's where I think, I'm a second-round draft pick in the NBA. I didn't have a guaranteed contract when I was with your beloved Portland Trailblazers, right? Like, who we just beat last night, but that's neither here nor there. And when I got into the MLB, for a year, there's a ton of people in Major League Baseball. You got to go through 4 minor league systems before you even make it to the bigs. So it wasn't guaranteed that I was ever going to be a professional athlete, let alone a professional athlete for a long period of time. So I dove into having those conversations early on.
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue. And as an aside, a lot of the team owners now happen to come from the tech world, right? You've got Ballmer with the Clippers, obviously Joe Lacob and the folks over at the Warriors. Now you've got Ryan with Qualtrics at the Jazz, et cetera. I know you've had some of your leadership come join for dinners that we've hosted. And so obviously technology is risen to the surface. But let me ask you, with technology in particular, given that it's become increasingly interesting to a lot of athletes in your league, how do you go about saying, okay, I'm interested, what next? How do I get involved? How do you make decisions, or how do you see your peers making decisions to sort of say, okay, I'm interested in that. Now what? How do I get involved? How do I avoid mistakes? Or are you seeing mistakes? I know it's a lot of questions in one, but how do you just basically take that first step?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, it's having conversations with guys within your locker room. Something that I've really, been imposing on guys, rookies on my team, rookies when I talk to them at rookie transition in Vegas, is, the modern athletes started, heck, back when LeBron started, right? Like, he's kind of been a catalyst for it. And that was back in 2003. So, like, there has been built Andre Iguodala. He was in the league for over 15 years, right? So I think what guys haven't realized is modern athletes are all around you. And it starts by just having those conversations. It starts by, look, we're not trying to talk about all the cars people are buying or gambling or how you're spending your money. It starts about having those intellectual conversations with your own teammates about what you're doing outside of your sport on the business front. What are your interests on the business front, or what are you passionate about on the apparel side, or things that like guys are already thinking about or doing on their own. And that starts with me, in my opinion, with sports and business aren't the same. The competitive nature that you have in business isn't to try to beat the guy next to you. It should be to work with the guy next to you and try to make it the best company that it can be. In sport, we're trying to beat the guy next to us, trying to beat the guy across from us. You're trying to beat the guy, when you're having a game against them. And I think that has started to switch, which is great. So those conversations are starting to be had. And then once you have them with people in your locker room, they'll often be able to say, hey, it's funny you say that you're into real estate or you're into tech investing. Like our owner is a tech guy, right? Or our owner started a startup. You should talk to him. You should ask him questions. It's those organic one-off connections that already are within the realm of what you're doing within your network that is built in for you in the professional sports world. And then you kind of see where it takes you.
Yep. I think we've talked also a lot about, in anything you do, finding somebody you trust who can help you along that journey and learn and make those decisions. But
and like you said, no, like, look, there's going to be mistakes along the way. Everyone's made mistakes. But one of the things that's helped me so much is having those conversations and meeting anybody and everybody to start. Like, I got involved with too many things at the beginning of my career because I just wanted to learn. I wanted to see what it was like. And part of it's using common sense, part of it's using feel, part of it's using, the opinions of people that you trust or grow to trust. But at the end of the day, the professional sports world is kind of like a fraternity, right? There's 450 guys in the NBA. There's not a lot of professional athletes in general, right? So aside from when you're competing against them on the court, they're looking out for each other's best interests. And so if you have veterans in your locker room who have had conversations with businessmen and women across the team or across the city or across the United States, they're going to be, confidence in what they're telling you. There's going to be an inherent trust that may not happen if it's just a random guy off the street or a random businessman or woman off the street coming in to talk to you. And so starting there is going to mitigate a lot of the mistakes because they're going to tell you about the mistakes they made. And that's kind of what's really helped me is I talk to teammates and then all of a sudden I talk to our owners. Then all of a sudden I talk to their friends. And then all of a sudden they were telling me things that they do differently that they wouldn't have done. And now I'm starting to avoid those little landmines in my business career. And then I'm now doing the same thing with the rookies on my team as this is my 9th year in the NBA. So it's a never ending cycle if you're willing to have the conversation, if you're willing to step out of your comfort zone and talk to people that you don't know, but you want to be doing what they're doing.
Now, I think you've been obviously a great asset to a lot of folks in the league. And I think, people ask me a lot, why have these athletes as part of your fund? What's kind of the value? And what I always say is it's the non-obvious things, right? It's we sort of describe it as the cherry on top of why we might win allocation in a deal, not the reason. But you and I have had these experiences where we're an investor in a fund and one of their portfolio companies is a real estate tech company, and you hopped on the Zoom with them, and they're trying to do webinars to sell into general contractors in the Midwest. And Pat Connaughton is a hometown hero in the Midwest. And just by getting you to hop on a webinar, they can increase their, attendees and lower their CAC. Or just by getting you involved and you're asking them questions and you might use their product on their projects. I know that's a very specific example, but I think people often underestimate the power of being able to use an athlete's brand appropriately without it having to be a quote unquote endorsement. So I think you've definitely proven that.
Yeah. And I think, look, at the end of the day, what is business? Like one of my greatest mentors, Ted Kellner, I asked him what was the key to his success. And he said, it's the people, right? And so it's something that, we take seriously here at Three Leaf is we're trying to surround ourselves with good, like-minded individuals. Like at the end of the day, we want people who do what they say and say what they do. And I think for myself, to your point, an athlete has this platform, but the best organic partnerships or working relationships or things of that nature is an athlete has an interest, and I might know of a bunch of different athletes, have a bunch of different interests. You're doing investing into different, not just tech companies, but funds that also have different tech companies they're investing in. And just you and I having a conversation about what those companies are, or me being invested into what you're doing. So I have a knowledge of what those companies are. It's very easy for me to be like, oh, I know a guy who's super interested in X, Y, and Z. And he'd be a great person to talk to because of his interest in those areas. He has some knowledge behind it, but he also knows more people in the industry, and that can really help jumpstart a company. But at the same time, it also helps an athlete educate themselves on what it means to be a startup and learn and see behind the scenes what they're doing, what works, what doesn't work. Because if they ever have a dream or a desire and ambition to start their own company, companies don't just work because you started it or because you have Twitter followers and Instagram followers or because you're a professional athlete, or because you're super smart. There's a lot of things that have to go into making a company be successful. And I think it really opens the eyes for the athlete. It puts them in a position to see all that. It empowers them to have a stance in a company and help a company. And then it also helps that company get a little bit further ahead or have a little bit more of a competitive advantage than their competitors. And because it creates win-wins. And that's what I always talk about with 3Leaf, right? I started taking on investors, not because we needed to, but because guys showed a genuine interest. It was something I was going to do with my own money anyway, but I knew, hey, I can do more projects because I'm not on a Damian Lillard or Giannis Antetokounmpo contract. I can do more projects with investors. And they're getting access to real estate deals and education on real estate they wouldn't otherwise have. So it was a win-win. And if you can create those win-win in businesses, I think that's where, like you said, the competitive advantage of having athletes involved lies, as long as the interests are kind of aligned.
Yeah, and I think you said it well. And I think to wrap a nice bow on this, it's, the modern athlete has a lot more interests, has a lot more wealth, and you start to see this expansion of their personal interests off the court. And, for you, real estate's your passion. You've launched this fund, but you have the diversification into tech, into other areas that you're interested in. I think we're seeing that more and more. And I just want to, give kudos to you for being such a great representative of the modern athlete. And then I know you're such a great, mentor to so many of the young guys in the league, and we've certainly enjoyed having you be a partner at Crossover. And I know you got to run, so I don't want you to miss that plane. But last hard-hitting question: who's taking home the NBA title this year?
Oh, yeah, I'm on record with this one. Well, look, I'm a competitive guy, and win-win situations in my world of my day job are the Milwaukee Bucks winning the NBA championship. I'm not necessarily going to give the nod to anybody else in this league. I think we got a great chance. I think, we're still working through some things and getting chemistry and getting our feet under us. But, we got a great team. We got a great group of guys. And at the end of the day, we talk about win-win situations within our team. We get guys that put winning first. There's a lot of guys in professional sports that obviously have a desire to score points, to get rebounds, to have assists, whatever the case may be. But we got a great group of guys who care about winning first and foremost, and know that the personal accolades will come after the winning. So I think we got a good chance, but you always got to stay healthy, and you always need a little bit of luck as the playoffs come around.
Right on. Well, I wouldn't expect you to pick anybody else. Pat, thank you so much for taking the time. Safe travels. Best of luck this season.